there are 3 essential things that you cannot live without. Number 1, air. Number 2, water. Number 3, a lot of people say, well, number 3, sun. Well, that's beyond our control, right? It's way up there, out in the universe. I'm talking about within this environment. It's actually salt. Did you know that we actually have the exact same ratios of elements and also the chemistry as the seawater? Did you know that when your sodium percentage of your body drops down to 0.88, which is our sodium always has to be 0.89 in our body. But if it drops down 0.01, your inflammation and infection will flare up like crazy. It will. And if you go over a few points, it's okay. But what we want your body to be is somewhere around 0.89 in sodium in our body, in our blood. Let me ask you a question. Where or which organ is the only organ never gets affected by cancer cells? Your heart. Have you ever heard of heart cancer? No. Guess why? Because your heart is consistently pumping your blood, which is what? Full of sodium in your blood. So your heart is the only organ in your body which never gets affected with the cancer cells. You know what cancer is actually? It's really, if you look at it, it's nothing but inflammation. It's a form of inflammation, form of infection. It's a mutated cell. And guess what? Everybody has cancer cells right now, all of you, and me too. But the thing is, our body is strong enough to fight it off. But if your body immune system going down so low, if you cannot really fight it off, guess where that cancer cells will grow? The weakest organ in your body. That's what we say, skin cancer, lung cancer, kidney cancer, pancreatic. Do you understand what I'm saying? Which means, if you are consistently keeping your body pH balanced and also sodium full, 0.89, then number 1, you don't have to worry too much about that horrible diseases and things that people are talking about and getting. And number 2, another thing. All you have to do is then just keep on taking the salt, correct? No. Because I have found out, after a very long time of practicing and learning and doing the study and researching, that not all the salt is the same. How many types of salts do we have? Tons of different brands, right? And if you really think about it, there's so many different types of salt that we are creating. Did you know that we can also create salt from trees, plants? Did you also know that we can actually create salt from other mineral elements? We can create salt from your blood or animal's blood. Did you know that? Of course, everybody knows that we have mined salt, right? Like, for example, crystal, whatchamacallit, pink salt, is it? Yeah, Himalayan salt. And that is salt. But it was caused by what? Land shift, volcanic ash, right? Volcanic eruptions and so on. True? It happened when? Millions of years ago. And millions of years ago, we didn't have any pollutions, right? That's right, we didn't have it. But we had natural pollutions there. Brine, about 90% or more in the seawater, is actually not a good substance for you to take. Because brine, as soon as it touches any type of protein, it just makes it hard. Just like that we used to use brine to make tofu. We don't anymore. But we used to use brine, which is nothing but salt water. You are grinding the soybean, and then you boil it. And then after that, you just pour, it's all water, right? And if you pour that salt water brine into that pot of, it seems like water, but it's full of protein. and starts becoming solids. And they squeeze it out in order to make tofu. And believe it or not, a lot of people who were rich enough to have tofu every day used to get sick because of that problem. Of course, when you're taking a little salt, a little bit is not going to bother you too much, but if you're doing it every day, it literally builds up into your body's, inside of your body system. But now, we don't use that brine anymore. And we use another chemical that we can actually don't have to worry about that problem, but then again sometimes cause another problem, God knows what. All this mine salt, and we also have a sea salt, correct? We also have lake salt. But the most important thing that I have found out, the best salt there is the sea salt. But here's the problem. Every sea salt has all the greatness of the minerals and elements of the world, plus the toxins that we've been dumping into our water, soil, and everything. And everybody goes, oh, you know what? This is really pristine area that we're getting this salt from. Guess what? Around the corner, they're dumping everything there. And everybody says, oh, you know what? This region of the world is so clean. Guess what? We have something called sea current hitting everywhere and just moving everything around. It's not safe anymore. But the problem is, people do not purify their salt before they give it to you. The best salt is the sea salt because it contains anything and everything in there. Whatever there is world, whatever we have in elements in the world, we should have it in our body system to be balanced out. That's what we believe in. But we don't want those toxins into our body system. That means the only thing that we can do is we have to learn how to get rid of all those toxins out of the salt water and the salt before we consume it, correct? But majority, not majority, almost all of salt manufacturing companies are literally trapping all this seawater, they let it evaporate or boil it to make the salt crystal. And the norm of them, their way of purifying the salt is right on the conveyor belt at about 0.2 miles per hour, treating it, purifying it with 120 degrees of heat, Fahrenheit. Do you think it's good enough? It's not. By doing that, you cannot get rid of some of these particles that we've been dumping into, which will cause horrible stuff. That is one of the reasons why, even thousands of years ago, the wisdom, wise people over in Asia had the idea, we cannot afford to put this into our body system, yet we cannot live without it. Then what do? That's why they have invented soy sauce, kimchi, bean paste, pepper paste, fermentation. Because they understand that we cannot live without salt. But somehow we gotta have it. But by putting this into your body system, you are literally poisoning your body. You're killing your cells, or worse than that, you're mutating your cells. Later on, you're going to be paying a horrible amount of pain. I was very fortunate enough to meet this master, who exactly knew how to make this process so simple, yet very effective. What was that? Burning it. And I thought it was very simple until I really experienced it. He said, oh, just burn it. Just burn it about 50 hours to about 100 hours. Just burn it. And I said, cool, I can do that, sir. Guess what? He told me to burn it. He taught me how to do it. So I said, no problem, I'll do it. I went out there and I grabbed this bag, gigantic bag of sea salt, and I took it out and went up to another house there, and he had a big furnace with a big pot on top of it. And he goes, just dump that salt in there. And I said, what kind of salt is this? And he goes, oh, it's natural sea salt. We treated it, we fermented it for so long using our own method, and I go, okay. So I put it in and he goes, light it up. So I lit it up. And he goes, I want you to shake it, with a big spatula, wooden spatula. He just wanted me to do this constantly, right? And I go, okay, no problem. the fire was going on and I was turning it, guess what? I could not standing there and turning. All that toxic coming out of that thing was making me dizzy. Every time I was trying to breathe, I could not breathe. And later on I found out that toxins that the salt is literally getting rid of is hundreds of times worse than carbon monoxide.